The treasure on the beach ******** Avery Guilford Worley's idea of the heroine. Avery Guilford Worley's idea of the heroine. Title page: The TREASVRE on the beach by Street and Finney, the Seaboard Air Line Railway Passenger Department, Portsmouth, Virginia. Copyright 1906 by Street and Finney, New York. Published for the Passenger Department, Seaboard Air Line Railway, Portsmouth, Virginia. The TREASVRE on the beach. He was always a queer old codger, my great-uncle Abner. I had never laid eyes on him myself, but his eccentricities were tradition to me, and when I thought of him at all, it was as a half-cracked old fellow living alone in a shack, on a sandy key, somewhere off the coast of Florida. Naturally, one doesn't get close-range impressions of uncles of this sort, especially if one's own life runs in very different channels, and if one has enough money to get along on, and one's sandy key uncle is not thought to have much of this world's goods. On the morning that Uncle Abner's letter came, I had gone downstairs to breakfast feeling rather beastly. I saw the large legal-looking envelope beside my plate, but, hardly having an appetite for eggs and coffee, I naturally felt no enthusiasm for mail. Drinking my coffee, I observed that the envelope was bulky, the sort of envelope that might contain specifications for a breach of promise suit. After a few sips of coffee, I found the energy to open it. Dear Sir, you will find enclosed here with a sealed letter, which we are forwarding to you in accordance with instructions of your late uncle, Abner Barker, before his death, which occurred, as you are of course aware, at Lone Palm Key, Florida, December 20th. Our instructions were to forward the enclosed letter to you 1 month after your uncle's death, and to inform you that another letter, an exact duplicate in every way of this one, has been sent simultaneously to the only other surviving relative of Abner Barker, namely, Graham Stewart, of Brooklyn, New York. Trusting that we may hear from you in case we may be of any service, we remain, yours very truly, Blackmar, Matthews and Blackmar. Harrison Fisher's idea of the heroine. Harrison Fisher's idea of the heroine. The letter enclosed by Blackmar, Matthews and Blackmar was in a dirty, homemade, yellow envelope, sealed with 5 large blobs of red wax. It read as follows: Nephew Alan Spencer, I send you a chart with this letter. If you are a young man of any energy or ability, which I very much doubt, it will be worth your while to investigate this chart, and put it to whatever use it may suggest. I shall send another chart exactly like this one to Graham Stewart, of Brooklyn, who is the only other relative to survive me. This letter will be held by my attorneys until 1 month after the day of my death, and will then be forwarded to you. I shall watch your use of it with interest, from the spirit land. I understand that you are a frivolous, idle youth, who are not likely to seize your opportunities. Your uncle, Abner Barker. I unfolded the chart. It was a queer-looking thing, carefully drawn upon yellow wrapping paper. It conjured up recollections of Stevenson's Treasure Island and pictures of savage-looking buccaneers and desolate, sandy beaches. There was a square-marked house, with a dotted line running through the middle of it. Then there were innumerable other spots, and dots, and lines signified variously. The word spring was written at one point, Lone Palm Tree at another. In the center of a circle, to which led dotted lines, my eyes were arrested by the words, Treasure buried here. I had imagined Uncle Abner a prosaic man, now it seemed I was wrong. He was a dreamer on his sandy key, he lived with the shades of corsairs, and saw ghostly galleons riding at anchor off his strip of coast. Poor old Uncle Abner. There was something grimly grotesque in the situation. One does not associate charts and buried treasure with a light noon breakfast in a clubhouse on Fifth Avenue. I think it was a flurry of cold rain upon the window which first turned my thoughts seriously toward Lone Palm Key. New York is a beastly place in a January thaw. I imagined the sun shining warmly at Palm Beach, girls in pretty summer dresses, and men in tennis flannels. Then again I heard the swish of the rain against the window, and looking out, saw a cab horse slip and fall upon the asphalt. Buried treasure or no buried treasure, I said to myself, Uncle Abner has given me a good idea. I'll go to Florida this very afternoon. A line from Blackmar, Matthews and Blackmar's letter caught my eye, the only other surviving relative of Abner Barker, namely Graham Stewart, of Brooklyn, New York. Who was Graham Stewart? I had never heard of him before. Most probably a relative on the other side of Uncle Abner's family. Had he received his letter? Perhaps even now he was hurrying south ahead of me. I had Henry look up trains at once and sent word upstairs to have my trunk and bag packed with nice, summery things for Florida. An hour later, as I drove to the 23rd Street ferry, and saw the cold rain streaking down the carriage windows, I felt genuinely grateful to old Uncle Abner for bequeathing me this excellent excuse for getting out of town. After all, there was something like sport in going down to Florida to look for treasure. The idea appealed to me more and more. I felt that I was in a race with Graham Stewart. As the Seaboard Florida Limited drew out of the Pennsylvania terminal and started on its run toward warmth, sunshine and Uncle Abner's treasure, perhaps Uncle Abner's treasure, I settled myself and began a close inspection of my fellow travelers. If Graham Stewart was on the train, I wished to pick him out. And something told me he was on the train. I made a mental inventory of my fellow passengers. Was he Graham, that slim youth in section 12? He had pale hair and wore glasses, and looked as though he might live in Brooklyn. But no, he was calm. Graham would be nervous. The keen-faced old man in section 5 was a likelier specimen. Men with grey beards and smooth-shaven upper lips are usually seekers for treasure, either buried or unburied. I leaned forward and tried to get a glimpse of the letter he was reading, but as I looked he tucked it away in an inside vest pocket. I would hunt him up later and ply him with talk of Treasure Island, old coins and things of that sort. Sewell Collins's idea of the heroine. Sewell Collins's idea of the heroine. By all odds the most interesting passenger was the girl in section 7, the girl with the big, blue eyes and long dark fringe for lashes. Every time I looked at her my interest in the buried treasure dwindled. I wished that she sat opposite instead of several sections off, for I have a rather useful set of plans that often work when girls sit opposite in Pullman cars. But alas! How seldom the pretty girls do sit opposite. I always draw a fat man in a skull cap, or a wheezy old lady who uses peppermint. There always is a pretty girl, but she's invariably placed far from where I sit. On this particular occasion she was so pretty, so very pretty, that I grew morbid on the subject. What a dull, stupid thing a bachelor life can be. I have no doubt I stared at her, as I reflected thus, for presently she brought me to with a frosty little look. Pulling myself together hastily I went into the combination car to drink and smoke and think it over. No, not the girl, the buried treasure. The old man I had picked out for Graham Stewart came in not long after, and sitting near me, lit a very bad cigar. We drifted into conversation and, quite casually, I managed to speak of Treasure Island. He said he had never heard of it, or Stevenson. I told him of the book, of the map in the front of it, that showed where the gold was hidden. Then I professed great interest in old coins. My efforts were rewarded by the strange sidelong glance he gave me, and when, shortly after, I began to speak of pirates he left me suddenly. Later, I noticed the porter and the Pullman car conductor regarding me with interest. When, before the trip was over, I gained the porter's confidence, at reasonable cost, I learned that the old man with the white whiskers had told them I was crazy, that I talked wildly of most extraordinary things. Evidently the old boy was not Uncle Abner's heir, after all. That evening after dinner I took out the letter and the map and studied them with care. The more I did so the more ridiculous they seemed. There is something indescribably grotesque in starting off to hunt for buried treasure in an electric-lighted limited. I felt that I ought to be dressed in oriental togs, with a red handkerchief about my head, and a pair of flintlock pistols in my belt. When the girl with the long lashes passed and glanced in my direction with cold, unseeing eyes, I felt more ridiculous than ever. How could a man hunt gold, I asked myself, with girls like that abroad? And immediately two impulses seized me. Graham Stewart and the treasure be hanged. I resolved, crumpling Uncle Abner's chart in my hand. I'll go back in the Pullman and have a look at the young lady, even if I can't talk with her. But as I walked through the train I smoothed out the map and laid it away in my wallet. When convention and the girl frown, I might as well have something, I thought, to fall back on. She was sitting with some magazines in her lap, gazing vacantly into the night. I passed without apparently noticing her, and sat dejectedly in my section. Man's sadness will awaken a woman's interest where nothing else will, you know. And before long the corners of my eyes caught a suspicion of sympathy in her regard, as if she read trouble in the countenance I was furrowing for her, and was sorry. Without seeming to look in her direction, I sighed the manliest sigh I could muster. I seemed to feel her sympathy deepen to pity and then, crash. Her magazines slid to the floor. I sprang to collect them for her. But confound these women prigs, that was all. She thanked me haughtily, rang for the porter and ordered her berth made up. I went forward for a smoke, was drawn into a game, and forgot about treasure and stingy, sneaking cousins and disagreeable eyelash girls until late the next morning. Leon de Bernbrucker's idea of the heroine. Leon de Bernbrucker's idea of the heroine. I did feel a good deal hurt, however, when I went by the young person on my way to breakfast that she didn't seem to know me from the porter. I cursed civilization that makes fate and girls cruel, and stayed away all day to show her I didn't even think of her. I really did think very little. I was canvassing the train for a treasure-troving male relative. I satisfied myself he was not aboard. But the thought of that unapproachable young woman robbed me somewhat of my gratification. When we reached Palm Beach I drove directly to the Royal Poinciana. I rather expected that the girl might be there, too, but I did not catch sight of her that evening, nor of any man that could possibly be Graham Stewart. In the romantic surroundings of the Poinciana the interest of my quest returned. Down there, the thought of buried treasure did not seem so strange. Before retiring I ordered a steam launch to take me to Lone Palm Key at 9 o'clock the following morning. It was 10 when I woke up. Hurriedly I dressed and breakfasted, but it was noon when I set out, first making an arrangement with the launch's engineer to do some digging for me when we reached the quay. All my eagerness returned as we approached the long, low strip of land where poor old Uncle Abner lived so many years. A sloop, with idly flapping sails, lay at anchor near the little landing, telling me that in all probability my remote connection, Graham Stewart, had reached the quay before me. I felt genuine excitement mingled with chagrin as we drew near. How long had he been there? Had he found the treasure? How would he receive me? My captain knew the captain of the Jenny May, and hailed him as we came alongside. "What you doing way out here, Cap'n Bill?" "Got a lady," Captain Bill replied. "She's over there beyond that sand dune, having a picnic all to herself. Didn't say she was expectin' no one." He eyed me disapprovingly as he spoke. So it was not Graham Stewart after all. That was a relief, though I was sorry anyone was there. I should feel foolish digging for Uncle Abner's treasure if a gull watched me, let alone a girl. Leaving the engineer to anchor and follow later with the shovels we had brought, I jumped ashore and hastened up the low sand hill, above the top of which I saw the lone palm tree from which the quay took its name. From the top I could see old Uncle Abner's shack perhaps a quarter of a mile away. Then my eye was arrested by a white figure near the deserted little house. It was the figure of a woman, and horrors! She was digging in the sand. I hastened on and presently came up with her. Her back was turned. She did not see me as I stood for a moment, amused, watching her pathetic efforts with a funny little shovel, such as is used for putting coals in kitchen ranges. She was working in a desultory way that plainly showed discouragement. "Can I help?" I said to her at last. With a little cry she dropped her shovel and turned toward me. It was my turn to be startled. She was the girl of the Seaboard Florida Limited, the girl with the long lashes. We stood there staring at each other for a moment. She was belligerent, resentful, but I saw at once that she remembered me. "I got here first," she cried, "it's mine." I looked about at the pathetic little holes she had been digging. "What's yours?" I asked. "You know," she exclaimed, "you know well enough. It's the treasure." "Well," I said, "Uncle Abner invited me, too." "But I got here first," she repeated vehemently. "You don't seem to have made much of your time," I suggested. She stooped and picked up her little shovel. "I don't need any help," she replied. "Another thing," said I am not sure that you have any right to be digging here at all. The lawyer's letter said the only other person beside myself who knew about the treasure was a man named Graham Stewart." "A man named Graham Stewart?" I drew the letter from my pocket and showed her. "It doesn't say a man," she explained, "see, it only says namely Graham Stewart." "Never mind," said I, "Graham Stewart is a man's name. That's plain enough. And I don't know whether I ought to stand round and let you rob him this way." "This way?" she asked, pointing at her little diggings. "No, not precisely that way," I said, laughing. "You'll have to rob him worse than that, or I don't believe he'll notice it." "Set your mind at rest," she snapped. "I am Graham Stewart myself." "But Graham is a man's name," I protested. "Do you imagine I have been named Graham all these years," she said, "without knowing that? Don't you suppose that I get advertising circulars in every mail, addressed to Mr. Graham Stewart? Don't you suppose men's tailors and men's haberdashers send me letters asking for my custom? That name has been a lifelong horror to me. I can never make them believe that I don't want things like razors and Scotch whiskey." "Well, it's a very pretty name," I said lamely. "By the way, don't you think you received me rather coldly, considering that we are cousins?" "We are not cousins," she cried. "Oh, yes," I said, "we are. We're sort of cousins anyhow." "But I don't want to be your cousin," she protested. "Oh," I said, "don't worry about that. Cousins can marry, especially if they are not first cousins." "That is impertinent," she answered. "Really, I can't talk to you any longer," and she turned away as if to dig. "Very well," I said, moving off a step or two. "I am sorry, because I was just about to show you the spot where you ought to dig. Now I shall find it by myself." She gave a little start, but did not answer. I walked over to my late uncle's house and sitting in the shadow produced the map, and appeared to study it, while the girl went on digging grimly. "Why didn't you have Captain Bill come up and dig?" I called to her, as the man from my launch appeared with the shovels. "I didn't want to let him know about the treasure," she replied. "I don't think it's safe." "That's a good idea," said I, taking the shovels from my man and telling him to return to the boat and await me there. Again, for a time I watched her delve in silence. What a pretty girl she was in her trim duck suit. At last I roused myself. I had come to Lone Palm Key to look for buried treasure, and I must begin at once. The chart was simple enough, now that I was on the ground. I had but to pace off 20 steps of an imaginary line running through the center of Uncle Abner's shack, toward the lone palm tree to point A. Then, going to the spring a few rods behind the house, I must pace off 27 more in the direction of the palm tree, thus establishing the point B upon the map. To find point C, I had merely to reach a spot equidistant between points A and B. Here the treasure should be buried. I rose at once and paced it out, noting as I did so that the only other surviving relative watched me with ill-concealed anxiety. When I felt sure that I had found point C, I threw my coat upon the sand, seized a shovel, and began to dig. Watching Graham, some 40 feet away, from the corner of my eye, I presently discovered that she was coming toward me. I dug more vigorously than ever, affecting not to notice her, as she stood by and watched me. At last she spoke. "I don't think," she ventured, "I really don't think you're digging in exactly the right place." Her voice betrayed no certainty, however. "I'm satisfied," I said. "You let me dig here, and you can have all the rest of the key for your own purposes." She was silent for a time. "I thought perhaps," she said at last, her voice quavering, "I thought that I might help you." "Oh, I'm a pretty good digger, thanks," said I. "Don't you think," she said, "that our maps may not be just alike?" "Oh, my map is all right," I answered. After watching me for a moment more, "I'm completely worn out," she said, "digging here all day in the hot sun. I think I'll have to go." She turned and walked a step or two, then, "I am hungry, too," she added weakly. "I'm sorry," I replied. "But you know when I came up at first, wanting to help you, you sent me off about my business." "Yes," she answered sadly, "I did, and it was rude. I am sorry. But I did want that treasure so much." I could resist her no longer when I saw that there were tears in those big eyes of hers. "Suppose," I suggested, "we make it partners." "Oh, would you?" she exclaimed, advancing eagerly. "Yes," I said, "if you'll do just what I tell you to." "Wait," she cried, "I'll get my shovel." "No," I said, "you're not to dig, I'll do that. You're to go down to my launch and eat." I brought a lunch basket along. How could a hungry man find buried treasure, or a hungry woman, either? "You're awfully generous," she smiled, "but let me stay here for a while and watch you. I'm sure you'll find the treasure before long. Then we can go and eat together." "Delighted," I said. "Your presence will encourage me. You're the sort of a partner to spur a man to do his best." "Thanks," she answered, and I thought she flushed a little. She watched me as I dug silently and perspiringly for the better part of half an hour. From the treasure hunting stories I had read, I knew exactly what sound to expect when my spade should scrape against the casket in which the treasure lay. When I had reached a depth of perhaps 4 feet, the work grew tiresome. Graham stirred about uneasily. At last she spoke. "Would you mind listening to a suggestion from your partner?" she inquired. I was glad of an opportunity to stop digging. "No, indeed," I answered, resting on my shovel and looking up at her. "How tall are you?" she asked, it seemed to me irrelevantly. 29, I mean 5 feet 11 and a half, I answered. "How old are you?" She gave me a cool glance. "I don't think my age has any bearing on the matter," she replied with dignity. "You asked me a leading question," I plead. "Don't be silly," she said. "Listen, it occurs to me that you are much taller than our common uncle was," and "he was common," I interrupted. "It took a common mind to devise a miserable trick like this." "Mr. Spencer," she said sharply, "do you wish to hear what I have to say, or do you not?" "Partner," I replied contritely, "I do, and I beg 1,000 pardons for interrupting with my foolish prattle." "A fitting apology," Graham said, with what seemed to me an effort at severity. "What I have been trying to suggest was this: you are almost 6 feet tall. Uncle Abner was much shorter, also he was old. Is it not possible that you have paced off longer steps than he took?" "Bully!" I cried, scrambling out of the pit which I had digged. "You're a partner to be proud of." "I should think," she ventured, "that my steps would give about the right measure. I had the map worked out all wrong, it remained for you to solve that part. But I'm awfully glad to be of some use in the partnership." She picked up her dainty skirts and paced the distance off, I standing by, meanwhile, to watch her graceful movements and her trim, pretty feet. The point which she ultimately reached was several yards nearer the hut than where my hole was dug. Somewhat cooler from the short cessation of my labors, I now pitched in anew. 2 feet, 3 feet, 3.5. Was this to be another false scent? When I reached a depth of about 4 feet, I paused and looked at her. Her eyes were big and bright. She shook her head as though to say, "A little farther." Again I plunged my spade into the damp sand. I thrilled all through as I felt it scrape against something hard, something metallic. 2 more shovelfuls and I had disclosed the object. I picked it up and held it out to Graham. Despite our eagerness, we burst into a gale of laughter. It was a tomato can, quite empty, too. Graham's laughter stopped suddenly. "Oh," she gasped, "how did it get there? We are on the right track. Uncle Abner must have thrown it in when he buried the treasure." "Great!" I cried, and then in sudden afterthought, Unless, I said, unless someone else has been here before us." She looked into my eyes with horror at the thought, twisting her handkerchief nervously in her slender hands. "Heavens," she exclaimed, "you do think of the most unpleasant things." Then, waving her arms excitedly, "Dig," she cried. "For goodness sake, dig. Let's have this suspense over with." I did dig, and presently my industry was rewarded by the discovery of an empty beer bottle and a sardine can. "Uncle Abner lived high, out here on the quay," I said, holding the trophies up for her inspection. "Dig. Dig," was her only answer. Again I got to work. This time I suppose I dug for 3/4 of an hour. The hole grew quite deep, but disclosed not so much as a buried button. I was very warm and very hungry. So I pronounced myself exhausted and asked Graham if she wouldn't let me rest a minute. She said I could, so we got the captains to bring up my lunch basket and Graham's parasol from the boats. Then we settled down to a little spread on the spot. We fastened the parasol to a shovel handle, and Graham let me sit down beside her in the shade. I've never had such fun lunching as on that day. The sandwiches were so good and Graham and the ginger ale so refreshing that I was heartbroken when there wasn't a drop, or a crumb, or an excuse to sit there any longer. So I dug again, and we were such friends by that time that Graham kept telling me not to work too hard and get all tired out. After a few moments she gave a little scream of delight, and leaning over picked a corroded coin from the shovelful I had thrown out. I took it from her and rubbed its surface. It looked like a Mexican dollar, but I couldn't make out. "Oh, won't you dig?" cried Graham, in an agony of impatience. Once more I thrust my spade into the sand. It stopped suddenly. This time it was neither can nor bottle, but something which soon proved to be a sound oak plank. A few mad spadefuls more, and it was clear that the plank was the cover of a heavy box, cleated, bound and hinged with iron. Graham stood above me gazing down with clenched hands and dilated eyes. The box was wedged so fast in the sand that when I first tried to lift it I mistook the sand's firm grip for the weight of gold within. After some 15 minutes' rapid work I managed to dig it clear. But when I lifted it my heart sank. It was very light. I tossed it out of the hole as easily as I could have tossed an empty steamer trunk. It fell upon its side and the cover dropped open, revealing the interior. I leaped from the hole and stood beside Graham. She was staring fixedly at the box, and as I came near her she reached out and steadied herself by placing her hand upon my arm. Alas! For our dream of buried treasure. Save for one object, the box was empty. Rushing forward I reached in and drew that object forth. It was a New York newspaper, more than a year old, and wrapped within it was a Seaboard Air Line timetable, of equally ancient date. These pathetic relics I placed in Graham's hands. She stared at them blankly. "Well, partner," I said, "there's the treasure. I make you a free gift of my half of it." The comedy of it all burst in on me now. The lawyer's pedantic letter. Uncle Abner's chart and acid note to me, my race with Graham, whom I had mistaken for a grey-bearded old man upon the train, my meeting with her lovely self upon the quay, our partnership, and its result. I laughed and laughed and laughed, until I nearly fell into the pit that I had digged. Then suddenly, quite as suddenly as I had begun, I stopped, for I saw Graham. What a selfish beast a man can be! Could I not have foreseen that this insane treasure hunt, which was little more than sport to me, might to Graham be a vitally important thing? What did I know of her circumstances? What right had I to conclude that she? Outlined sharply against the sunset sky, I saw her swaying where she stood. There were tears in her eyes. I hurried to her, and she leaned against me weakly. "I am sorry," I said, "awfully, awfully sorry." She looked at me and tried to smile. "I am glad," she said in a quavering voice, "I am glad that you can laugh. I wish I could." "Try." I begged. "Oh, please do try. I love you when you laugh, when you don't laugh, too, of course, but really, Graham, really. I cannot bear to see you cry." I don't know just how I got them, but I suddenly found that I was holding both her hands, as I entreated. I don't think she knew it any more than I did when I took them. "Don't feel badly about it," I begged her. "What's the use? You must see that it's a joke on both of us. Either someone got here first and took the treasure off, or Uncle Abner thought he'd have post-mortem fun with his surviving relatives. You see, Graham, I think I may have said, Graham dear, you see the joke, don't you?" "The wicked old man," she cried. "It's no joke to me. It comes near a tragedy. It cost me almost everything I had to come here. If that's a joke, I call it a hard one." She was radiant in her anger. I was spellbound as I watched her. Will Grief's idea of the heroine. Will Grief's idea of the heroine. "That is tough," I exclaimed. "You have no idea how sorry I am, honestly you haven't." I think I must have squeezed her hands, for she looked at them and drew them from mine with a conscious little blush. "Don't you think we'd better be going to the boats?" she ventured. "It's after sunset." "Since you put it as a question, no," I answered. "I see no reason why we should go to the boats. As for the sunset, they have these every night down here, but you and I don't meet every day upon this quay. We ought to make the most of it." "But it's all done, the treasure hunt," she said, digging a little hole in the sand with the toe of her white canvas shoe. "It's not all done," I cried. "Yours may be finished, but mine is just beginning, and I give you fair warning, here and now, dear Graham," I said the dear quite plainly this time, "that this new treasure hunt of mine is going to make the old one look like the picnic party it was." "Really, really," she began. "Yes, really," I exclaimed. "I assure you," she faltered, "I assure you, I don't know what you—" "Oh, Graham, Graham," I cried, "you've been reading novels. That's what girls always say in novels, I don't know what you mean." Yet, they all do know what he means, just as well as you know what I mean. The digging she was doing with her little slipper interested her more than ever now. "Graham," I continued, "whether you knew or not, I would have told you what I meant. I wouldn't lose the luxury of telling you, for worlds. This is it. I came here to hunt for treasure, buried treasure," she inquired, smiling faintly at the toe of her white slipper. "But we didn't find the buried treasure," I pleaded. "You found nothing but me, to help you dig. But I discovered something more than buried treasure. I found out where there was a treasure, a living treasure, greater than jewels and gold could ever be. It's a treasure I can't reach by digging in the sand, Graham. It must be given to me freely, and by you." She was silent for a moment, then she faced me. "It's because you're sorry for me," she said, flushing. "I thank you, but I can't accept a sacrifice like that." "No, dear Graham," I persisted, "it's not because I'm sorry for you. I'll be sorry for you, though, if you don't take me now, sorry to see you dogged, and pestered, and followed everywhere, and worshipped by a man like me, until you have to take him to avoid his persistence." She smiled at me frankly. "You have no idea," she laughed, "how I long to say this is so sudden, but after I don't know what you mean, I am afraid to." "Do save yourself a lot of trouble," I warned again, "by taking me now, Graham, instead of waiting until I get you." "I suppose," she said, "I suppose I might as well. I shan't tell you what happened then, but in my haste to do something, mind I don't say what, I almost tumbled into Uncle Abner's treasure pit. The Jenny May sailed home, a little later, without the passenger she had brought to Lone Palm Key. Graham and I returned in the steam launch. When I insisted that the only two surviving relatives of Uncle Abner be made one at once, Graham said, "You know what she said, as well as I do. She simply couldn't help it." It was, but, really, this is so sudden. N.C.D. William's idea of the heroine. C.D. William's idea of the heroine. End of the Project Gutenberg ebook. The Treasure on the Beach updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works. So the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission, and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works, to protect the Project Gutenberg concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose, such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances, and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works. By using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license available with this file, or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Electronic Works 1.a. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark or copyright agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg electronic work, and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation, or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States, and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format, with its attached full Project Gutenberg license, when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing, or creating derivative works based on this work, or any other Project Gutenberg work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e. Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg, 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away, or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook, or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7, or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work, or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links, or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary, or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, if you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII, or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg website at www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII, or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg license, as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about Donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing or by email within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f. 1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe, and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects, such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2. Limited warranty, disclaimer of damages except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty, or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3. Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4. Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5. Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties, or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg work. And C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg. Project Gutenberg is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's EIN, or Federal Tax Identification Number, is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84116, 801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact. Section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form, accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform, and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork, and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments, and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg Electronic Works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the US unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks.